Well, it's a very beautiful Sunday morning here in Johannesburg. Good morning and thank you so much for choosing Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jali. Here's what we have for you on the show this morning. We're going to start by looking at the latest developments of the fees must fall movement and what we see the indefinite campus closures for the rest of the 2016 academic year. Stay tuned to find out. We look at the incoming public protector's remarks about the much anticipated state capture report. But is the new public protector her own? That's the big question that everybody wants to know. The NPA's application for leave to appeal President Zuma's corruption charges will also give analysis on this matter. And finally, we look at the impact caused by Hurricane Matthews in the devastated Haiti. But first, as always, it's 900 hours and these are the top and leading news this hour. COSATU President Zuma has called on the world to join South African students on their fight for free education. Dlamini was addressing a mass rally at the World Federation of Trade Union Conference. Delegates from countries such as Britain, Russia, Canada, Greece and Cuba were also in attendance. Donald Trump has vowed not to quit the race to be U.S. president in spite of an outcry over the obscene remarks he made about women back in 2005. More than 24 Republican politicians now say they will not back him, and they have urged the billionaire candidate to drop out in favor of his running mate, Mike Pence. And Bafana have drawn 1-1 with host Burkina Faso in their opening 2018 World Cup qualifying Ouagadougou yesterday. Welcome my guest this morning. I'm very pleased to be joined by political analyst and Sowetan opinion editor, Ms. Nompumelelo Runji, as well as Mr. Teboho Ditsejo. He is the CEO of Ditsejo Media. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, Dini, please come through. He is back and he is, of course, digital media trends man. That is, I'm talking about Mr. Dini Mekuto. Dini, a very good morning to you. Good to see you again. Looking good on this beautiful Sunday morning.
Thanks,
what do you have for us? I mean, it must have been quite a busy digital news.
Seriously busy. Vets must fall, taking a large portion of the chart there. 75% of what was talked about on social media this week in South Africa was about the fees must fall issue.
It's a big issue.
Vets was the primary hashtag and fees must fall, and there were other secondary ones like Dalimpofu, who came out on Tuesday in support of the students. And as you know, a lot of stuff happened on Tuesday with the police clashing with the students, or the students clashing with the police. And then there was also Mtsebo Dlamini, who's one of the former leaders of Vets, who was also trending because of what he had to say regarding this matter. Another thing that also trended this week was Leanne, bring back Leanne Naidu, who was part of a female delegation or female activists that are pro-Palestinian, who was caught in a boat that was intercepted by the Israeli government. And then also, what also trended lastly is Desmond Tutu, turned 85, but there's also an issue of assisted suicide that got people talking. But going back to take
let's go back to the vets. I want to find out what were some of the reactions on social media. Take us through that.
Okay, so this one really divided people, right? This Take Vets Back had a backlash of people saying it reeks of white privilege and students that are comfortable, that are only concerned about their own interests. And we had someone who's Nosipo Kut who says, I love Take Vets Back. It unwittingly proves the point of fees must fall students about who actually owns the space and who owns the stuff, you know. And then I Am an African says, I like the title Take Vets Back. You can only take back something you own and borrowed it from someone. The hashtag cries with white arrogance. So that's the rhetoric that was coming from this hashtag. Take Vets Back. Back to where? Back to the days of apartheid and racism? Hashtag. And then the last one, do you want to take it back to the privileged few while you are shutting out thousands of poor students?
You know, Dini, I just want to hear from my panelists. I know we're going to start with this debate very soon on the show, but I just want to hear from the social media side. And I know, Teboho, you always on social media. What did you make of the reactions there on Twitter? It sounds like the students are quite divided over the issue.
Yes, I think we should respect the right of everyone to protest and to express their views. But I think this smacks of a bit of a lack of understanding and sensitivity towards the plight of poor students. And take VITS back is a hashtag which I wouldn't recommend, because who are you taking it back from? I thought South Africa belongs to all those who live in it. So all of a sudden there's us and them. We own VETS. They want to take it and we must take it back from them. And I think it's quite an unfortunate hashtag.
Very interesting indeed. Nompumelelo, what did you think?
I would agree completely. They could have given it another name, you know, to express their views, etc. But to name it in that way,
Take
this
this
hashtag, pits them against the other students, and we now have an antagonism. Of course, universities are a contested space with different views, with people who have different perspectives on things, and that's where debate must take place. But the way we formulate our debates is very important, especially in such a volatile context where we're dealing with very sensitive issues.
It's very sensitive indeed, and we're going to talk in more detail on that when we begin the show. But Dini, what else made those hashtags this week?
Leanne was also trending. Leanne Naidoo, as we had said, the South African activist, and people were also tweeting about it. I'm in awe of Leanne Naidoo. What a woman, so raw, so brave, so selfless. Hashtag women to Gaza, women boat to Gaza. That one was from Karishma. And then we had another one from Nelson. Nelson is saying, we'll ignore this one. Nelson was saying, Leanne Naidoo says, what we went through is only, this is a quote actually from Leanne, what we went through is only 1% of what Palestinians go through. That's what she says.
It's a big debate. What did you think about this, social media storm there?
Well, you know, it's quite interesting, this particular story. But when I looked at social media, it wasn't quite a huge trend that trended, you know, throughout. It was a very small story, and for me, it wasn't that big.
It wasn't that big. Let's look at the video that was actually assigned to this team.
So these were people welcoming her back from OR Tambo International. She was welcomed back as a hero because of her bravery.
Nompumelelo, do you have anything to say there very quickly?
Well, I mean, there are a number of organizations who are trying to keep this Palestinian solidarity alive. Although it was a small story, but you see that there's growing support, you know, for this push against Israel, etc. And South Africa has a lot of that empathy, you know, towards the Palestinians, given our own apartheid experience. So it's not surprising that Leanne would receive such a welcome, given the solidarity that's present.
Even though
in
it
the
didn't
country.
receive much media coverage. Dini, what else made it through to the headlines? Of course,
Desmond Tutu
very
turning 25,
interesting.
85.
Yeah, 25.
I said 25.
Dini.
Looking weak and frail, let's maybe play the video and hear what he has to say about assisted suicide.
The terminally ill people should have the right to choose the manner and timing of their death, and that their choices should be respected. I hope that when the time comes, I am treated with compassion and allowed to pass on to the next phase of life's journey in the manner of my choice.
That is very, very interesting turn of events. I mean, we know that it's just come out of hospital. He's been in and out of hospital for the past couple of months now. And to hear him appeal for assisted suicide, that is going to be an interesting one.
So the argument is, as much as people have a right to life, when they reach a stage in their life where they feel like, you know, I do not want to live anymore because of the pain that I'm suffering from, they should be given a right to death. That's what he's advocating for. People are saying the irony, a man of the cloth, Archbishop,
Read
is saying
some
this.
of those tweets, Dini.
Mr. Tutu is tired of living. In this case, he wants someone to put him to rest. That's one tweet from Signori. And if you want to catch our videos and our news inserts and also this program, you can go to our YouTube channel, SABC Digital News, and you can catch on past episodes of even this program, Media Monitor. And click subscribe so that you get notifications of whenever SABC News loads videos.
A very quick one, Denny, before I let you go. Which videos do you decide to actually put on the website?
So it's packages and stories that are done by SABC journalists.
I see.
So you'd get those.
Okay, all right. Well, you heard it here on Media Monitor first. That is Dinime Kuto. He was bringing us a total rundown of all the biggest hashtags of the week. And of course, he will be back next week right here at 9 o'clock. Thank you so much, Dini. We're going to take a quick ad break and we're going to be back.
Certain choices in life lead us not to our destination. Prostitution will not.
Everything that I used to do then, it was something that I never thought of, I never dreamed of.
One bad choice in life led her to another.
Most of my clients, they used to ask me a question, what am I doing in that industry? Because it does not suit me at all.
Her demons haunted her until she changed her life.
I used to pray that, Lord, if you can deliver me from these drugs, I promise you that I will serve you for the rest of my life.
She has since found peace and is serving her community.
We'll try by all means to spend time with all of our kids.
Join your host, Buleng Mulabati, every Friday at 17:30.
Welcome back. Now, at the height of the fees must fall protest, tensions remain high as the movement's call for free education continues to be tarnished by violence. This has resulted in university shutdowns, disturbing the academic program and taking from the very student that is eventually meant to benefit the disadvantaged. Well, pending meetings between the varsity and students take place next week to find a resolution. Here's more on this insert, though.
Day-to-day disruptions. Students refuse to back down. They say talks with management have proven fruitless. They disrupted classes again.
Black people as a collective, as a race, we are denied to exist at UCT. That's why you see only black people and only white students are studying. What do you think what's going on? There's white students who are coming to school, there's black students who are not coming to school.
The university says there were attacks on the security and attempts to reoccupy Steve Biko House. Lectures are, however, continuing. In Nelson Mandela University, students were singing a different tune. They embarked on a silent protest demanding the institution to open its doors. Many of these students are on the verge of completing their studies.
If government can spend 1 trillion rand on a nuclear deal, they can surely spend that same 1 trillion rand to help education.
Fees must fall. Change needs to come in government and education department and the way money is being spent.
But this protest is not welcomed by all.
We feel that this particular protest is dividing students and is unnecessary.
At the Durban University of Technology, the situation remains tense. This after a building and a vehicle belonging to the institution were touched. This comes after DUT management announced an end to the strike. Police and private security are on campus as classes resumed. Meanwhile, a student mass meeting is scheduled at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And classes at the 2-year-old Solplaag University remain suspended as a mass meeting is expected. Nhlanhla Kgatlane, SABC News.
Very interesting developments throughout the week. I mean, we've seen some protests turn violent. And as we've just heard from the clip, it says that some students are now divided over whether to go on fighting. And I know that the Vice-Chancellor of Wits University, Professor Adam Habib, was actually raising the issue of the fact that the university wants about 30,000 students to graduate. I mean, what about those students?
Yeah, it's a very dire situation. If we remember last year, when Fees Must Fall started, it didn't have much media support.
Yeah.
And only 2 weeks within the protest did it start to gain traction on social media. And the social media uproar forced the hand of various media role players to start covering the protest. And initially it was a publication by the name of Daily Vox, which was giving rolling coverage of what was happening on social media. And I think the students have succeeded in bringing the narrative of the importance of prioritizing education to the forefront. It is very important for us to focus on that now and moving forward, because that is the key to the success of our country. We need to develop those skills. We need to create access for poor people in order for us to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. Now, what's fundamental is for us to always contextualize what happens in a protest. You see burning cars, you see students angry, but students don't just get angry out of the blue. Something has to happen. And at the center of this is conflict resolution. The tertiary institutions of this country have failed dismally to communicate effectively and to resolve disputes among students. If a student has a dispute, your reaction shouldn't be to call police in, to fire rubber bullets, to hit them with stun grenades, to hurl tear gas at the students. That is not how you resolve a conflict. You have to have dialogue and you have to negotiate in good faith. Otherwise, if you're going to respond violently, then what do you expect the students to do? And how do you think the students are going to feel about that kind of a heavy-handed response?
You know, I hear you, Tebogo, and you're saying that, the students have realized the goal of which is prioritizing education, but is burning infrastructure and also disturbing the academic program part of that then, Nompumelelo?
Look, the students are fighting for an important principle.
Yeah.
That is accessibility of education for all people, the principle of inclusivity, of quality for all, not just for some. But we can have a debate about whether the methods that they're using is correct.
Absolutely,
You've got those who have been disciplined, who have been marching peacefully, etc. Then you've got a minority that has taken advantage of the situation to burn infrastructure, to express their anger in ways that are not constructive. But I think it's important to contextualize what's going on here. The issue that the students are dealing with is bigger than just universities.
True.
And although the protests are taking place in the site of universities, it's actually a protest about government, about the state, about what are we prioritizing as a society as a whole? Are we prioritizing the transformation of our society from what it used to be under apartheid, the segregation, the exclusion, and moving towards a more inclusive society, which means that we bring everyone on board, including the poor, including the marginalized, and we support them as a state? Or are we fine with the status quo? And that's why Adam Habib is saying, look, we are with you, students. He said it, Wits. Students, we agree with the principle. Free education is important and it is feasible. But the thing is, we're universities. We can't make free education happen. This is what now government needs to come in and make a firm commitment. What we've seen over the years from government is promises being made, possibly around electioneering, trying to win the youth vote. But we've not seen a firm commitment to making those promises come to light. And that's what the students are saying. They're demanding accountability. They're demanding that government stands for what it has been promising and actually delivers on those promises that it's been making over the years.
Do we approve of the methods?
No.
What should we say? I think we need to send out a stern message as young people ourselves to say, you know what, maybe the way that you're going about it, I hear you, Tebogo, you're talking about dialogue that needs to take place, but a lot of people are saying there's a fees must fall commission that is still looking into the feasibility of free education, and that hasn't even drafted its first report, and already students are turning violent. I mean, what happens then? How do you hold a dialogue in such a volatile situation?
Well, the situation is created, it's made volatile by there not being any dialogue. And that is the situation that you find yourself in. And we cannot condone people who destroy property. It's unacceptable. Not in this day and age. We speak about June 1976. At that time, they used to protect such institutions.
Yeah.
And they used to go at the oppressive system and all of the structures that related to the oppressive system. Now, we need to go back and sit down and say, look, what is a feasible way forward? In as much as we do know that free education up to the first degree was a promise that was made. Is it feasible? And if we do make it happen, what are the various models that we can use? And I was thinking that perhaps we can look at prioritizing certain courses that are critical to the development of our economy.
Absolutely.
And then for the courses that are all of them are critical. But the ones that are not necessarily a priority at this stage, how do poor students gain access to that kind of education, and in principle agree that no student is going to be excluded based on not being able to pay fees, and no student will not receive their results because they can't afford fees?
When it comes to the issue of dialogue, I think Tebogo is correct in the sense that there's been limited space, for conversations between university management and students over time, especially as we move from 2015 onwards. But we've seen that university management is more open. If you look at most of the universities, they're going to have open meetings with students, general assemblies, etc., all over the country. But what is missing is the lack of responsiveness from the state, from the Department of Higher Education, from how, for instance, President Jacob Zuma has treated the situation of the students, not availing himself. For instance, even last year, he refused, to speak to the broader when the students marched on the union buildings. He didn't come out to speak to them. So there's this sense of a distance between those that have the power to make those decisions, those that have the power to make free education happen, and those that are demanding it on the ground. I know one of the leaders at WITS, for instance, said that we cannot stop our protest until we get a response from government, until we hear something from government. Yes, we hear the issue of commissions, a commission that is sitting, but this is not an issue. This issue preceded that commission sitting, for instance. There have been task teams that the Department of Higher Education put in place. I think it was in 2012 that the report came out and recommendations and scenarios came out. What has been done about those scenarios? Now we have another commission. So we can't keep deferring decision making, and that's what the students are saying. Hence the call which says we want a decision now. Now the impasse is that yes, universities want academic year to continue so that people don't lose the year and people can graduate and move on. But what the students are saying is that if we lose the momentum now, the pressure that we have put on now, if we succumb, what it means is that this struggle is deferred again to another year, to another 2 years, to another 3 years. So we need a strong response right now from the state. This is not going to come from universities. We really need the state to come out and speak very strongly on this issue. Whether or not it will agree to what the students are saying, whether or not, and if yes, what is the plan? If it's going to take 2 years, if it's going to take 10 years, that's what we need. We need some kind of decisiveness, some kind of direction about where this thing is going to go. Otherwise, this impasse is going to continue for a long time, and we may not see universities opening up in time to finish the academic year.
So you're saying out of the meetings that are going to take place today, we are likely to find a resolution where students are saying we're going to continue with our protests, we're not going to back off?
In all likelihood, yes. The students are going to remain stubborn until and unless the state comes out, whether it's the Department of Higher Education in the person of the minister, or it's the presidency that comes out and says, this is the decision we are taking, this is what we are going to do about the situation.
Yeah, it's a volatile situation. Indeed, there are general assemblies taking place throughout the country, and we will definitely keep you informed right here on the SABC News channel. But coming up after the break, will the incoming public protector be able to fill the shoes of Advocate Thuli Madonsela? More Media Monitor after this short break.
keeping you up to date with business developments.
There's no shortage of money in the system. There's a shortage of implementation capacity to actually get things done.
Always on point with news of the day.
May has promised radical social and economic reforms, fueling speculation over the future of current senior figures.
On the ball every time with all sports codes.
The Joburg side already have a quarter-final at home, and a victory against the Argentines will ensure home semi-final.
Accurate weather updates after every bulletin. Stay tuned to News Today at 3 p.m. from Monday to Friday on SABC News.
Welcome back. As the new public protector assumes her office next week, the pressure will be mounted on her to complete the much-anticipated state capture report. The investigation is of the alleged involvement of the Gupta family in the dismissal and appointment of cabinet ministers as well as members of boards of state-owned enterprises. But here's more on this insert.
It's a matter of life and death. A person who's sitting without electricity, without hot water, children going to school without hot water, compared with the state capture. Yes, it's important for us to look into it, but then I think I will give priority to make sure then that a person who is at the grassroots level benefits more.
We've heard what the public protector actually thinks should be her top priority when she takes office. What do you think, Debo?
Well, I think she's on the ball, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. At this stage, it's very difficult for you to evaluate how competent an individual will become, within the position. Remember when Judge Mogoeng was hired, there was outcry. People were angry. And they said a lot of things that were disparaging against Judge Mogoeng. And now he's the darling of the nation. And he's one of the best appointees. And I mean, it's very unfortunate that I think that the narrative is constantly, we think the worst of each and every person that is being appointed. And I think we need to give her due time in order to, get involved in that particular seat for her to start to deliver. And her focus on the poor of the poor on the grassroots, I think that is very good. We do have a lot of our citizens who do not have, the resources to hire lawyers, and take up some of their issues using court processes. And the public protector, as her decisions are binding, pending a court review, I think that is a great place that you can take your matters to in a cost-effective manner.
I mean, what do you make of the fact that she's now demanded an apology from the DA, which was the party that was against her?
Well, I mean, I think the DA judged too soon. We need to I agree with them, we need to give it more time. And in the context of this interview about whether she will prioritize state capture or not, I watched the entire interview and I think she's made some very good points.
She did,
She says, I want to deal with a backlog.
Yes.
Public protector has a backlog and I can only determine what cases I'm going to prioritize when I go in there. And the principle I want to use is the accounting principle of first in, first out. But then again, she added a caveat to say that the state capture investigation is also important because where there's maladministration, it also tends to affect the citizen at the grassroots level. So she's got a balanced approach, I think, and we need to give her time to decide what her office will do first. And I agree with the principle. I mean, the predecessor, Advocate Thuli Madonsela, did well, to increase the profile of the public protector's office. She dealt with high-profile cases, for instance. But we hardly hear about what the public protector is doing when it comes to the grassroots level issues that people are facing. And I think that's the balance that needs to be struck. But I don't think that what she said means that the state capture
capture
will be put on the back burner eternally, so to
Why
speak.
are people so interested in the state capture report? I mean, when they should know that there was other pressing matters that the office was actually investigating, Debo?
Well, it's difficult to ascertain why is there a rush for that particular investigation to be finalized. Investigations are not things that happen
are done overnight. Yeah.
There are two sides to a story. You do not judge a story based on what the first person said.
Yeah.
You judge it on the entire body of evidence, and then you make a decision. You're not making a decision based on whether I'm going to improve your ratings. I want you to have great ratings, so I'll just release the report tomorrow. That's not how it works.
It's not how it works.
You know,
yeah.
and I agree with my guest here, my colleague.
Yes.
Nompumelelo. She's correct when she talks about the principle of dealing with the backlog, but yet having a balanced approach in dealing with some of the other pressing matters. I think that's logical.
Can I come in
Yes,
and just
please,
say that
please, no problem.
the reason why people are very excited to hear the outcome of this investigation is precisely because of what the DA has been saying about Ms. Mkhwebane, Advocate Mkhwebane, saying that she has
She's
a
the
close
president's-
relationship with
yes,
the
the president's
president, or the
person.
president likes her, for instance. So this is a test case for her. People are going to judge that relationship or that liking that President Zuma has for her, and they're going to say, oh no, she decided a certain way because of that relationship. So I think that she's doing well to tread very carefully on the issue, because it's a very politicized issue, given the fact that Advocate Thuli Madonsela's Ngandla investigation found against President Zuma, and obviously the constitutional findings, what has been happening in Parliament, etc. So that's why there's this excitement around the state capture and what the outcomes will be. But I think that it's important, as Tebogo was saying, that there are two sides to the story, and this investigation is a very sensitive one. It needs to be given the time, to go its full length. Everybody that needs to be interviewed must be interviewed. The president's side must be heard. It must be seen to be a balanced investigation.
Yeah,
and it's very important.
Look, Thuli Madonsela was sitting with the president, I think on Thursday, actually, on an interview, particularly in regards to this case.
Yeah, and I think going back to the issue of the public protector, she has indicated very clearly that she's not going to be restructuring the investigating team.
Yeah.
And she's been working there for 5 years. And so I don't understand, if you have a relationship with the president, does that mean automatically you're not going to be objective? Does that mean you're not going to serve the public to your best of your abilities? Of course she will not be Thuli Madonsela. And she's said it very clearly that she will probably not be able to fit in those shoes. Yeah. But she is qualified for the position. Let's see what she's going to deliver.
Just on that statement, after the meeting, Advocate Thuli Madonsela's office released a statement and one of the things that was very interesting is that she says that the president does not see why this investigation should take priority or should be prioritized. Now, some people will draw an inference from what the statement says about what the president said and what Ms. Advocate Mkhwebane has just said about whether or not she will prioritize or not prioritize. But I think it will take some time before we can see.
We're still waiting for a preliminary report by the outgoing public protector. I mean, what do you think we can expect from that? Already people have already got an outcome that is preconceived. Debo.
Yeah, people do have a preconceived outcome of what.
But then why
really
take such cases to the public protector, to the Chapter 9 institutions for investigation, if we cannot allow the law to take its due course?
Well, look, it was apparently taken to her in March. And for me, I think there's a rush for her to take the decision. Not necessarily for, the office of the public protector.
For her, as in Thuli Madonsela.
Yeah, for
before
her.
Before she leaves.
For her team, actually. Because she's not investigating by herself to take an immediate decision. We want you to take the decision. No, we want all the evidence to be concise.
Properly collated,
and everybody to get, time to collate all of their statements, and then a decision can be made from there. And obviously it can be taken up on court review if
there's a problem with it. Another thing we need to understand, the public protector is not Advocate Thuli Madonsela or Advocate Wusim Khwebane. The public protector is an institution.
Yes.
You know, it has systems, it has processes, it has investigators. So we have this tendency of conflating the head with the institution. So if Advocate Wusim Khwebane gives the final report, we're going to compare her with Advocate Thuli Madonsela and say, but this is a different style. But it will be. She's a different person, you know.
Absolutely.
And we shouldn't judge her findings on the basis of who she is, comparing her to who Advocate Madonsela was. Advocate Madonsela was carrying out her obligations based on the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's the same thing Advocate Khwebane would be expected to do.
Absolutely. You know, we're going to have this debate once Advocate Khwebane releases that report, and we're going to refer back to this day here on Media Monitor. Let's take a quick ad break, and after that, the NPA's disappointment with the Constitutional Court ruling on the spy tapes. More coming after the short break. Do stay with us.
The proceedings of the Fees Commission has once again been disrupted.
We as a university do not feel that fee-free higher education currently is feasible.
This is a Mickey Mouse commission. During in the commission, student grievances we're not a part of the commission in the program. So that is why we tend to disturb the program.
If you tell me that I can't leave, then you are keeping me hostage.
Some students demanded that UCT lift the suspensions and expulsions of certain students.
The Constitutional Court has refused to hear the NPA's leave to appeal the order to reinstate corruption charges against President Jacob Zuma. The court ruled it was not in the interest of justice to deal with the matter at the time. However, the presidency has acknowledged the ruling and said the president will await the SCA's verdict. But here's more on this insert.
In a short order, the Constitutional Court refused to hear the NPA's application. The justices say it's not in the interest of justice to hear the matter at this stage. The DA, which has been fighting for 7 years now for President Jacob Zuma to be prosecuted, says this is a victory.
This is in fact a waste of the court's time and that these charges should be reinstated.
Legal minds believe the Constitutional Court refused to hear the application at this point because President Jacob Zuma has petitioned the Supreme Court of Appeal on the same matter. The presidency said in a statement following the Concord order that the president will await the SCA ruling. The NPA stresses that the separation of powers is a constitutional matter.
We're extremely disappointed. The reason why we sought direct access to the Constitutional Court or approached the Constitutional Court and not petitioning the Supreme Court of Appeal was particularly because the issues raised in our application were constitutional issues. We felt these matters will inevitably be litigated on before the Constitutional Court.
Abrams says the NPA wants a speedy resolution to the case. Aldrin St. Pierre, SABC News, Pretoria.
Nompumelelo, your views on the latest developments on the Court's decision not to hear the NPA's leave to appeal?
I think we shouldn't make too much of it until we hear the outcomes of President Jacob Zuma's application to the SCA.
Okay.
Because I've read some legal comment on this, and he would still have recourse also to the Constitutional Court.
Yes.
You must remember the NPA was the applicant for
Yes.
this one. President Zuma has his own application pending at the SCA. So when the DA says this is a victory, I'm not quite convinced yet. Until this thing sees its full course with President Zuma's side as well, I'm not sure that this saga is soon to end.
Deborah, what did you think?
Well, I checked the media reporting on this, and it was quite comprehensive. When the judgment came out, I saw it trending also on social media. And so I think a lot of people are aware of what is happening, but I don't know if the public knows the detail of what is happening.
I was about to say, I mean, a lot of people are saying that isn't the Court the highest court in the land, and they've said that they won't give hearing. I mean, what does this mean then? Shouldn't the president or the NPA in this case just go ahead and reinstate the charges?
Well, the president approached the Supreme Court of Appeal.
Yeah.
And the NPA approached the Constitutional Court.
Yeah.
And the Constitutional Court said at this stage, it is not in the interest of justice for us to hear the case.
But what does that mean? It's not in the interest of justice at this time to hear this case.
Well, we could draw inference and say we can't make the Constitutional Court is saying we can't make a ruling on this. We need to first see what the SCA says in terms of President Jacob Zuma's application, for instance, because these are linked. These two are linked. The NPA's application as well as President Zuma, it's dealing with the same matter. So I think the Constitutional Court may be more willing, to maybe hear or pronounce on the issue once that has been resolved. Should President Zuma's application there at the Supreme Court of Appeal perhaps be dismissed, then he'll have recourse again to the Constitutional Court. Then maybe we'll see something more comprehensive. But I want to agree with Deborah about the public may not understand the nuances. They just hear headlines and the DA saying, oh, this is a great victory, for instance, when there's so much going on behind the scenes. Or they may hear President Zuma shrugging it off, So unless we're following the details, and perhaps this is where, the media needs to come in terms of breaking things down a little bit better.
I was about to ask exactly that. I mean, let's talk about this. What seems to be, the big fundamental argument behind this case, Deborah?
Well, I think that there were charges that were withdrawn. I mean, a lot of us were watching it live when the head of the NPA at that time, Mokotedi Mche, withdrew the charges, and he comprehensively explained why. And the High Court set it aside and said it needs to be reviewed, that particular decision. And now they are contesting that whether or not it should be reviewed, and whether or not justice delayed is justice denied, because that is also going to play a big part in this particular case. We need to also remember, and the public needs to understand, that having charges against you does not necessarily mean that you're guilty. It just means that there are questions that you need to answer, and there are charges that you need to answer. And once you've provided your answers and there's been a robust interrogation, then the court will decide. And we have recourse to go from the magistrates to High Court, Supreme Court, to the Constitutional Court. That is why they are there, for us to utilize them. And I think in this instance, we should respect the right of the president to utilize the various institutions and see how far it will go. And then from there, I mean, we all know that at the end of the day, the rule of law is going to reign supreme, as has happened in our country. Our government is committed to respecting the rule of law.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, we need to take it easy, look beyond the politics. When, as Nompumelelo said,
that's the big thing, though. The political side, we can't run away from that, though.
The politics tend to overshadow. But it is a political case, given how the charges were dropped in just before President Zuma would run for president. And one of the arguments that the NPA was making regarding this High Court decision and appealing it is that the separation of powers.
I was about to say exactly that, yeah.
Doesn't the NPA have the discretion to decide what cases it takes on and takes on to court, etc.? But I think the reason why the High Court also dismissed, the leave to appeal, and they had to go directly to the SA and directly to the Constitutional Court, is that argument is not very solid, in the sense that the court did not find that the NPA has no discretion.
Yeah.
It was ruling on that specific decision that was taken in that specific instance to say the reasons given around these things were irrational. The reasons given around dropping the charges were irrational, and therefore the NPA needs to revisit this and reconsider and review those reasons and see, if there are not other compelling issues there that mean that this case can be taken to court. I mean, over the years, we've seen President Jacob Zuma seemingly, ducking and diving around this issue of facing these corruption charges. And the reason for that is that it's not good for his political career. It's never been good for his political career. If he had faced those charges then, he may not have become president, for instance. So it is a politicized issue. But of course, I agree with Debogo. Like any other citizen, he has the right to go to every avenue that he needs to go to.
Yeah.
If he needs to appeal to the Constitutional Court, he can do so. And if the Constitutional Court finds in his favor, we need to respect that as well. If it doesn't, then of course he needs to also now, play his part.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I find this debate on separation of powers is a very interesting one. And that's what tends to actually confuse a majority of people. We're even talking about it off air, about the Fees Must Fall protest, that, wrong people send the wrong messages to the wrong people and they react wrongly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And we really have to admire our constitution and our democracy, because we've seen a grand separation of powers, with the Constitutional Court showing that in one of their recent rulings. And I think we need to continue on that route, because it keeps us, the checks and balances in place.
Let's allow the law to take its course.
Absolutely. And I think we really need to respect the rule of law, respect the separation of powers in order for our institutions to operate efficiently and effectively.
You were talking about media filling in some spaces. Maybe they should tell us more about the separation of powers and how that battle actually heats up. Who's got which power? We're going to take a quick ad break. After that, we're going to tackle the Haiti crisis. Do stay tuned.
The decision to reappoint Dudumyeni to chair the SAA board was again heavily criticized by members of parliament.
Tell us whether she still believes that it is in the best interest of the airline that she doesn't resign.
We're satisfied that we have the necessary skills to take the airline forward.
Myeni, who arrived almost 2 hours after the meeting started, offered to answer in writing.
Now, Hurricane Matthews has unleashed a tragedy in Haiti, killing about 900 people and has left tens of thousands homeless earlier this week before plowing northward to the southeast of the USA, where it caused flooding and widespread power outages. Haiti is still recovering from a devastating 2010 earthquake. A lot of people are asking, what's going on there? But doesn't it raise the issue of global warming? That's our biggest question here. Debo.
I'm not necessarily sure if it's a climate change issue. Hurricanes have been with us since the beginning of time. And if you look at this particular issue, we need to look at evacuation measures that are in place in Haiti. And not necessarily blame it on the officials only in Haiti, but also to look at how are we as African countries supporting Haiti. Because there were talks around Haiti joining the African Union and being a member of the African Union, and they have a lot of affinity towards the African continent, as a lot of their ancestral lineage is African. And therefore we need to look as us, as a continent, what is it that we are doing to assist relief efforts, and going beyond just praying and sympathizing for the people of Haiti and actually putting money aside in order to help the victims. But I think we need to go beyond that. We shouldn't just have a reactionary approach to what happens with natural disasters.
We send a team there to go and assist
afterwards.
That's all.
I think we need to be proactive in the sense that we know that we have teams available in times of crisis, as you saw in North America and Canada, when we sent over some of our
the firefighters.
The firefighters to go and assist on that side. I think in Haiti we need to do the same thing, because if you look at what Cuba has done for the African continent, besides bringing soldiers to fight against colonialism, Cuba during the Ebola crisis was one of the countries that sent doctors in to risk their lives in order to quell the outbreak of Ebola. And I think we need to also move towards that line where Africa is now being proactive in assisting other countries, our friends such as the people of Haiti, when they're dealt with natural disasters.
There's something we never speak about when we look at Haiti, because Haiti is normally covered in times of disaster. After the 2010 disaster, Haiti received billions of dollars in aid, and that aid was administered by predominantly aid agencies and NGOs. That tells you something about the weakness of the state in Haiti, the governance, and also the weakness of institutions. And you cannot replace a strong government and strong institutions with foreign donors, for instance. The other thing is that Haiti is a very poor country, even aside from disasters.
The poorest in
and
the Americas,
in the Western Hemisphere is the poorest. The other thing is also it has a very it has a lot of political volatility. It's not a peaceful country where political decisions and processes happen in a sort of peaceful, happy-go-lucky way. There are very serious problems, very serious challenges, and I think the world needs to start zooming in a little bit more, not just around issues of disaster, but how do we strengthen governance in a country like Haiti? How do we make sure that people are educated, that there's development, for instance?
What are the problems
I think exactly.
With?
And I think the AU has a role to play in that. Not just the world has gone in there with billions and billions. And people are asking themselves, actually the locals, I was reading reports, are asking themselves,
happened to that
what
money?
happened to that money? And we don't trust these aid agencies. We want to see changes, and we don't see our government. One of the other reports was saying that we don't see our government. Where is government when we are facing such difficult challenges? And I think we need to zoom in a little bit more in what's happening in that country beyond just this disaster. And we need to deal with the key issues of institution building, of good governance, of how do we strengthen political leadership there, business, the development of business and industry, the economy, And it's very interesting that it's got such close proximity to countries like Canada and the US and Brazil, for instance.
I wanted to ask, what are those countries doing to aid Haiti?
And assist with evacuation procedures, because it's a very tiny country, and there's not many places to go when there's a hurricane. So you really need foreign assistance in evacuating the people to a safer land. And so that's what I thought would happen. But clearly it's not happening. And so we need to ask ourselves as Africans, what is it that we can do, during these kind of times for the people of Haiti so that we can minimize the loss of life? And I think Nompumelelo has raised a very important point to also assist in long-term development of the country.
We also need to be realistic, though. Us as Africans on this continent are struggling with the very same challenges of governance and development. So we need to be very realistic about how far we can go, what assistance we can provide. But I think the world has to answer for what's going on in Haiti beyond just
let's look at the media coverage that was received by this. A very quick one, Tebogo. Do you think it was sufficient?
I think it was sufficient. But in this instance, I haven't seen the leadership of various countries coming out and making a statement around this issue. And I think perhaps Nompumelelo is right. We need to look at global leadership. What is it doing for the people of Haiti? And I don't think they're doing enough. When there are tragic tragedies in other continents, there's an outroar, but when it's in Haiti,
Africa must go claim Haiti as one of its own. Thank you so much, Nompumelelo Runji, as well as Mr. Tebogo Detseko. They were joining us for this discussion here on Media Monitor today. And of course, we will be back next week, same time and place, right here at 9 o'clock. But on top of the hour, I'm back with Marumo with your sports news. Stay with us.